They are doing this exam again, so I don't know what to do. It's
Not extra.
yes. It's okay. But exam game and something.
Yes. Courses of the first year we were discussing. Yes. And I think that the third course we have to. What was that? Formation of two power blocks. Yes. Okay. Remember or not? Not remembering. You told me you have. In between, how many lessons are there? Nationalism. Okay. Yes, she. Correct. Four courses only we have to study, and the third course. Okay. Now, during that time, the world countries were having two types of countries. One is that is single nationality countries, and the other empires. When we talk about empires, means it was heterogeneous. That is, they speak different languages, and so many countries were part of that. One example is Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary was such an empire which consists of nearby countries, and it was a heterogeneous country. But at the same time, when we talk about the single nationality countries, France, one language and one country. It was not that way empires. Getting or not?
Yes. What about the colonies of?
Colonies we are not talking about. That is why this groups are formed. When they had that feeling of expanding the territories, then only this division. Colonies are not part of that. We are talking about the empires. That is Russian Empire when we are talking. Russian Empire consists of nearby Poland and other countries together. So they speak a different language, not the Russian language. The same way Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary was also, it was a patchwork of nations. Okay, now what we are going to say, the world was divided into two postal camps. What is that postal camp? Means they were enemies. At the same time, they wanted to acquire more territories. Means dividing the world into that kind of big power blocks. So, in 1882, one group was formed. That group consists of Austria-Hungary, Germany, Germany and Italy. But that was one of the group. It was called as Triple Alliance. Okay. On the other hand, we know that Britain, France, Russia. They formed a counter alliance in 1907. What happened?
One P, one
P,
to
no?
five.
One P only, no?
Yeah.
Okay. When we are mentioning triple means double P is coming. So that is. And then. Huh? I don't know. Just wanted to complete it. Triple and then they was the counterbalance. So triple alliance was the first group, 1882. It was formed, and 1907 the other alliance was formed. The aim of this alliances was to expand its territories. So naturally, when it was having the aim of expansion of the territory, they had to fight with the enemy countries. There was a condition at that time in Africa. Africa was divided among all these European countries. It was divided like that, a paper partition. That is, they stayed in Europe and divided Africa among these. That is why when you look the map of Africa, you can see that it is exactly with the scale used. So this country, I want this country, you take it like that, they made a paper partition. So now, when there was no country left out, they fight among themselves. That is why this way two groups of alliances were formed. Later on, what happened in 1915, Italy left the group and joined the other side. By the time, Japan also joined the side of this countries. So it came to be known as, and for Germany and its allies, Ottoman Empire joined. So now the group came to be known as, this group came to be known as Central Powers. And this one was known as Allied Powers. Okay, first it was Triple Alliance and Triple Alliance and Triple Entente. Later on, when the countries are reshuffled, that is more countries join on either sides, it was not at all triple. Three countries are not there. So they began to be known as Central Powers and Allied Powers. This way, world was divided into two coastal gaps. That was the third reason. Is it clear? Now, we have understood, no?
Yes.
Jamash. Huh?
Why did the war start
Which war started?
with that?
Here, war was not there. They formed a group
Why?
for self-protection as well as for invading other countries.
It can take France land because they were enemies.
They were enemies.
Or did they also fight for them?
During that wartime, they did not fight among themselves because they need the help of each other. There was a condition when the war used to take place on land, France used to win. When in waters, England used to win. So they decided to form an alliance against, because during the First World War, that stages you don't have to study now. During that time, the battles of the war were fought all over. On land, in water, and in air, everywhere the war had taken place. So they need some kind of alliances. So France was with the Britain. Clear your doubt? Okay. Now we are moving to that fourth course. Can anyone tell me? Sarajevo crisis. Okay. We can call it as immediate course also. Because so many conditions were there. The conditions were preparing towards a war, but it was not breaking out. So all the situations were there. So that time only there was an incident related to who was that murdered.
Ask everybody. I don't.
Because no, one more thing I want to tell you. See, when you this year onwards, your paper that the direct type of questions are rare. Everything is competency based. Competency based when you are thinking that it is not just a passage. That is another type. Here, one statement will be given, and from that you have to derive the answer. That is what the competency is. So this time that kind of question, so you have to understand each and everything. Understood directly. What was that incident? That question will not come. So you have to read carefully and understand the concept. Clear? Are you getting? So competency based you have to give importance. There you cannot escape that हमारा book में only, but it is purely based on that syllabus. Okay. Sarajevo crisis, or we used to tell Sarajevo murder case. What was that murder case? Here, Archduke Francis Ferdinand the Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary and his wife. Both of them were killed. So you can find in your textbook the picture, that one photo used to come. You have to identify that. What was that incident? That is what I have told you, that competency based. You have to identify the incident. Understood or not? So Francis Ferdinand and his wife were killed at which place? Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. Now, what is its relation? Austrian crown prince. He was killed at Sarajevo, and that also capital of Bosnia. How it can be related? And
Serbian person.
it is believed that Serbian one group was Black Hand. Black Hand was made responsible for this murder. What was that? It was a revolutionary group, Black Hand of Serbia. So these all things, little background we have to understand. It was a period in which there was independence movements in these all places. These parties belonging to what is that place? Balkan countries. Some 18 countries were there in the Balkans. Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, all these countries together known as Balkan. In that, the independence movements were going on. And at the same time, this Serbia wanted to take the lead of it. This was not liked by others. So at the same time, these powerful countries like Germany, Russia, Britain and France, they wanted to get control of all this. This background was there at the time only this murder case occurred. So Black Hand was Serbian revolutionary group. One more name was the Union of Delta. These all names you have to remember. That is why I asked. Because of that, Serbia was given an ultimatum by Austria-Hungary.
11.
On 23rd July, it happened on which day? 28th June. This murder happened. So 23rd July, the ultimatum was given. Are you getting? Just connections only going. So 23rd July, Austria-Hungary gave an ultimatum consisting of 11 demands from Serbia. Serbia was ready to fulfill the majority, but the main demand was not met. So, on 28th July 1914, the war was declared on Serbia. So, first war declaration, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia.
But what was the main demand of
Main demand, sovereignty.
Their independence.
So, this was the day when that first declaration of war, which month? July 28. You have to understand, in the initial stages, only declaration of war was taking place. So, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Then afterwards, second declaration on August 1st, Russia started preparation of war to support Serbia. Russia wanted to support Serbia. So Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia wanted to support Serbia. Now on August 1st, 1914, the next declaration, Germany declared war on Russia. First, on August 1st, Germany declared war on Russia. On 3rd August, it declared war on Britain. Got it? So, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on 28th July. Russia wanted to support Serbia. So, after knowing that Germany declared war on Russia on 1st August, on 3rd August, Germany declared war on Britain. Got it? So, now you have to understand one thing. Near to Germany, there was a country called Belgium. Have you heard about Belgium? Belgium, that you might have heard about the European Union. Have you heard about the European Union? A group of countries who have the same economic bond, same currency and all. So European Union's headquarters is in Belgium, Brussels, the capital of Belgium. Belgium is a neutral country, but German armies moved towards Belgium. That was the real cause for the beginning of that first war. Till that time, only declaration was taking place, but a neutral country was attacked, or through the neutral country, German armies moved. So that created a kind of hatred and anger by this Britain and France. That was the beginning of First World War. So already declarations were there. Normally that period we used to hear as phony war or like that. Just declaration, no war actually taken place. But when through Belgium, Germany attacked that other countries like France and Poland. Then naturally the countries began to enter into. Clear?
I did Germany attack Belgium.
Through Belgium only they can press or they can pressurize the other countries. No? Belgium is a neutral country. Through that means others will enter into war. Here up to this one, 1914, there was no such World War time. First World War. So before that, the countries were fighting against each other. But this was that two groups were formed. No group was attacking. So they wanted to pressurize the other country to attack. So it entered into Belgium. That created the war situation and First World War started. Got it? So which were the two groups? Initially it was Triple Alliance and Triple Entente. Later on it turned out to be Central Powers and Allied Powers. Got all the four reasons. So which incident sparked that First World War? Sarajevo. Murder case of Sarajevo. Crisis. Okay. And who was killed?
Duke Francis Ferdinand.
And his wife. Who was that? Archduke Francis Ferdinand? Crown Prince. Who was responsible for that murder? So that is why ultimatum was given on Serbia and it later led to first. Clear? Now I think events are not important. Not there. Now results of that First World War. See, when we study about the results, the seeds of the Second World War were sown in the First World War result. Understood? So that treaties which were made after the First World War created condition for the Second World War. That is why let us see what were the results. Yes, you tell. First result.
The Treaty of Versailles.
See, little bit we will discuss about that condition. 1914, the First World War started. The countries never imagined that this long the war will go on. We know that Russia was with the side of which power, which group? Britain and France, that is allied. Okay. So Russia during that time, 1917, the Russian Revolution was going. So much events happened in Russia. It made or it forced Russia to withdraw. By the time another incident happened, USA entered into the war. Understood? So Russia was the party with the allied powers, and 1917, after the revolution in Russia, it withdrew from that First World War, and USA entered. There was two reasons. One was that
ships never US as an American.
yes, the German U-boats sunk British in that 125 American passengers. That was one of the reasons. Second reason means America was not in the war. America used to give lot of loans to these European countries. America thought that if it participate in the war, then only the war will get over and they will get back the loans.
This will be exhausted financially. How will they repay the loan?
But immediately there was some like that boom in the economy after the First World War for a short period. Then only economic depression started. So America wanted to get back the loans and it was sympathetic to the British. So all this made America to enter the First World War. So they have made a lot of efforts to put an end to that war because Germany was winning. Earlier, Germany was nothing. So they have underestimated Germany and Germany now winning. So this forced that other group to make something to defeat Germany. So against Germany, this Treaty of Versailles was made. So that was on 28th June 1990. Treaty of Versailles. 28th June 1990. So the main aim was to weaken and completely damage Germany. This Versailles is a palace in France. One famous palace in France was Versailles. So the treaty was made at Versailles. So this treaty was the worst treaty because it was an imposed treaty. It was an imposed treaty to make Germany down. So what are the terms and conditions of this treaty? Okay. Terms and conditions, I'll read out, then you have to mark it. Because 4-5 terms at least you have to remember. First, the treaty declared Germany guilty of aggression. We know that that was the reason. So, Germany was made guilty of aggression. Second, Germany was required to pay for the loss and damages suffered by the Allies during the war. The amount of reparation was fixed at $33 billion. What was the amount? $33 billion. That time, that only was considered as the international currency. Okay. Germany had to send her merchant ships to the Allies as compensation and had to supply huge quantities of coal to France, Italy, and Belgium for 10 years. There was a famous coal mine in the world, Star coal mine. So it was settled into France for 15 years. So that was another term. So we have seen Germany was made guilty of the war. Second, we have seen $33 billion was to made compensation. Germany had to pay, and her coal mines were settled to these countries, her territories also. Area of Rhine Valley. When you see that, there was a very fertile place, right? It was between Germany and France, Rhine River. So this particular part is the fertile part. And this part, mostly the army used to be stationed. So German army used to be stationed here. French army was also. So now what they have told, earlier its army strength was 8 lakh. Now it was reduced to 1 lakh. German army strength was reduced to 1 lakh. her air force, her that whatever that military strength was made to reduce. So this also we can understand it was forced upon Germany. Okay, next point. Germany lost Alsace-Lorraine to France, Eupenet-Malmedy to Belgium, Schleswig to Denmark. Danzig became a free port in the Polish territory. Second World War time, this Danzig was the territory responsible for. So now Danzig territory was made as a free port. How many points you have learned? 4 points. You are able to write or able to tell? One more point we will study. The coal mines in the German area called Saar were ceded to France for 15 years and the area was to be governed by League of Nations. After the First World War, an international organization was formed. It was called League of Nations and the administration of this territory was done by League of Nations. Okay, Germany lost all her colonies to victorious allies, Britain, Belgium, South Africa, and Portugal. How this South Africa is coming?
Germany was on the winning side, then why did they sign this treaty? They had more power because they were winning.
That is what initial stages up to 1918, Germany was only winning. So they this entry of USA at the same time they wanted to make okay. German army was restricted to a force of 1 lakh soldiers and the navy was limited to 15,000 men, 24 ships. The air force and submarines were banned. Got it? 4, 5 points are there. 6 points I have to. Enough? All the points you need or this 6 points enough? Now, second, territorial rearrangement. See, here during that or before the First World War, we have seen Britain and France were the powerful countries. Now, with that First World War, the world began to realize the domination of Germany also. At the same time, economic domination of USA also. It was a fact all the countries have to accept. Now, to prevent the expansion of these countries, the countries began to be rearranged and distributed to different countries. The countries which were earlier part of Germany were distributed to the victorious countries. See, we have seen that the political map of the world, particularly of Europe, 3 ruling dynasties were destroyed. So what is that? Have you heard about that dynasties? Romanovs of Russia. Second, Hohenzollern. No? Hohenzollern in Germany. Austria-Hungary, no? So all these dynasties, say Romanovs of Russia, Hohenzollern of Germany, Habsburg of Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Next is that new countries were created. Till that time, some countries were not there, that countries were created. For example, Czechoslovakia. Have you heard about Czechoslovakia? This was a new country created, but afterwards, now it is not there. It is Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. Okay, so this was a new country. Like that, few new countries were created and blocked. That is further expansion of Germany. Understood? So this is called a territorial rearrangement. They wanted to prevent the expansion of Germany further. For that, new countries were created. Earlier countries were given to other countries. Got it? Second point clear? The earlier autocracies were ended. Which were the autocratic dynasties? Romanovs of Russia, Hohenzollern of Germany, Habsburg of Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire. Medieval period fully that Ottoman Empire was dominating, and now that full empire was dismantled and only Turkey remained. Understood? So that were the territorial rearrangement. Next is that formation of League of Nations. See, there was a kind of condition that when the countries were fighting against each other, who will come to settle? Who will prevent further war? So they decided to form an organization to prevent further war and to make a peace. So what were the aims of this one? Prevent further war and make a peace. For that purpose, League of Nations were formed. Say, during the First World War itself, American President Woodrow Wilson prepared a covenant, means a list of programs to be done to put an end to war. That principles were included in the League of Nations. League of Nations principles and all objectives are there, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Let us see. All the states of the world were prohibited from entering into any secret treaties and alliances. Earlier, we have seen two groups of alliances were there. So now it prevented the countries from making into any alliances or treaties. Clear? Second, the member states were not supposed to maintain huge armies, warships, and destructive armaments. Second reason for the First World War was the race for armaments. So in order to curtail that one, in order to prevent such a situation, the armaments had to be reduced. Third point, all states were to respect each other's independence. Each other's independence means not to attack others. If you are respecting the independence of others, you will not attack others. That is what aggressive nationalism should be ended. Next, all states were to refer their mutual dispute, if any, to the League of Nations for a peaceful settlement. If they have any dispute, they have to bring it to the League of Nations for settlement. They should not go each other for fighting. They should bring that matter before the League of Nations. Next, the member states were to take necessary action as directed by the League against any state which tried to disturb the world peace and order. Apart from political functions, the League of Nations was supposed to promote cultural, social, and economic cooperation among the member states. So, 5 points you got. Huh? Now we have to see that the League of Nations was formed, but the ideologies and the principles which were written in the League of Nations were not obeyed by the member nations. That USSR did not become the member, Russia.
Did not take.
Then Germany was supposed to be the member, but it withdrew from the League of Nations. America, who prepared the charter, did not become the member. America wanted to dominate the world, so it did not want to be the part of that one.
So they wanted to wage war against this nation.
Wage war, no, that is economic domination it wanted. So in the pretext of protecting them, they wanted that. So because of all that, the organization which was formed to settle the disputes become a cause for the war. Yes.
On the third point, it states that all states were to respect each other's independence, and why didn't India get independence?
Independence means it was applicable only to the power blocks.
Not
That
economic.
no.
India was British.
India was a British colony, and stating that at that time Indian nationalists placed this particular clause before them. Why are you not giving independence to us? So it is applicable only to that big purpose. Okay. Any doubt is there? So you just we can see that First World War. Any doubt is there? Anything need to explain?
Hello? नीचे रखना जाना नीचे सैटिंग रोवर नाम की चीज है भाई क्या और होम डिवाइस कर वाला
Independence revolt of India.
नहीं मतलब बंदा एक सेकंड
नहीं करना है.
हाँ देख यही लगा क्या
exclusive channel for ICSE board students. आपके लिए इस करंट सेशन के अकॉर्डिंग लेटेस्ट सिलेबस के अकॉर्डिंग ला रहे हैं आपके लिए सारे लेसन
Take that
किसी भी समय
videos of that question.
escape oversimplified ऐसे होता है
Search bar. Yes, ICSE does it. What was it? Animation.
The world of 1914, a time of modern technology, culture, and fashion, truly the height of civilization. Let's have a war. Everyone knew a big war was coming. France wanted some stuff back that Germany had taken from it. Germany wanted to take more of everyone's stuff, and they were building a big, sexy navy that was making the British uncomfortable. These territories thought they were really cool, but lots of different people who lived there didn't think it was so cool, and some of them had even been declaring independence with help from Russia. Everyone was talking about each other behind each other's backs, throwing the fact that military technology had come a long way since the last major war, and suddenly everyone was pretty eager to beat each other up. In this area of Austria-Hungary lived some Serbs and Bosnians who hated having an Austria-Hungary. So the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand goes there for a nice ride in an open-top car, with his car's route published in advance. And that went just about as well as you'd expect. Some assassins were waiting for him along the way and threw bombs at his car, but they missed and blew up some officers behind him instead. So the Archduke goes into hiding, leaves Sarajevo, and the Cold War never happened. Except no, the Archduke doesn't leave, but instead goes back out in the open-top car to visit the injured officers in hospital. The driver takes a wrong turn and by sheer coincidence gets stuck beside one of the failed assassins, who shoots him. Austria-Hungary is understandably pissed about all this, and they think the Serbian government had something to do with it, which they might have. So they go to their ally Germany and say, hey Germany, we're going to declare war on Serbia, and Germany is all for that. So Austria-Hungary sent a big list of impossible demands to Serbia, and when Serbia refuses, they declare war. Austria-Hungary and Germany are friends, and Serbia is protected by Russia, who's friends with France, so they all declare war on each other. Montenegro joins in too. France and Britain also have a kind of alliance. So when France says, hey Britain, you got my back? Britain is like, maybe. And then they decide to stay out of it, which is great for Germany because Germany has a plan. They know that Russia is so big and clumsy that it will take them a while to get ready for war. So with this guy in charge, Germany will send all its troops into France at lightning speed while Russia's getting ready, defeat France, then move all the troops to Russia and defeat Russia, and then we all speak German and eat Pfeffer Podcast every day. Just one problem. France has loads of forts and defenses along its German border, and Germany can't waste any time fighting them, so Germany decides to go around them through Belgium. Belgium is neutral, but Germany wants to march 750,000 troops through it to get around France's defenses. They're hoping Belgium will just kind of sit down and shut up, but they don't. They fight back, and they're pretty good too, so they slow the Germans down. What's worse is that Britain shows up, and they're pretty pissed that Germany is invading neutral countries. So now Britain declares war on Germany. So Germany push on through Belgium and commit some atrocities along the way. They also wear spikes and sometimes skulls on their uniform. So if you're trying to not look like the bad guys, good job. The Allies have a propaganda extravaganza, and this starts having an influence around the world, notably in America. The US President Woodrow Wilson sees himself as a bit of a Jesus figure and spends most of the war trying to get everyone to just hug it out. But there's also a large population of ethnic Germans living in the United States, and when the war first broke out, they were like, yay, German. But now that they're committing atrocities in Belgium, they're less enthusiastic. Let's play Spot the French Soldier. Did you see him? Easy, right? He's wearing a bright blue uniform with red trousers. And do you know who else spotted him easily too? The Germans. So when the French were slowly marching in columns through the countryside, the Germans easily tore them to shreds with their giant guns. All the nations involved in this war went in with an old school war mentality. And all of them had to update their uniforms and tactics a lot during the Great War. Because this war was going to be like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Russia's ready for war, and way earlier than expected. Hey, Austria-Hungary, can you get on top of that? Oh yeah, sure, we've got this. Nope. So Germany has to send some troops back to the east to defend against the Russians. The chief of staff of the Austro-Hungarian army is this guy, and although he is handsome, he turns out not to be the best military strategist. Austria-Hungary constantly ignores Germany's advice, and then comes running back to Germany whenever they get in trouble. Austria-Hungary even gets its ass kicked by tiny Serbia, who repels older invasion attempts at the start of the war. It's better news for Germany in the north, though. They almost completely wipe out the Russian Second Army. Back on the Western Front, the Germans continue advancing and are in sight of Paris. At this point, anyone would be forgiven for thinking the Germans were going to get that quick victory after all. But then things start to go wrong. The French commander-in-chief knew something had to be done, and he ordered his armies to stop retreating. In the resulting battle, a gap opened up in the German lines. If a gap opens up, the enemy can use it to flank you from the side and behind, so the German armies have to retreat. The Allies launch a counterattack, so the Germans dig into defensive positions. The Allies do the same. Then both sides move north, trying to outflank each other along the way. When they reach the sea, they're in a stalemate with trench systems running the whole way from the coast to Switzerland, the beginning of trench warfare on the Western Front. Here's how trench warfare works. Two opposing lines of trenches with no man's land in between. One side would pummel the other with hundreds of thousands of artillery shells, sometimes for days at a time. This had a huge psychological effect on the soldiers, leaving many shell-shocked. Then, the attacking troops would leave their trenches and rush across no man's land, a muddy wet mass of shell craters and barbed wire. The defending trench would unleash machine gun fire on the attackers, inflicting thousands of casualties. The attackers would send wave after wave until either they gave up or the opposing trench was finally overrun. There would be months of fighting and the deaths of thousands in order to gain a few meters or kilometers of land. Living in the trenches was hard work too. Corpses, mud that could swallow you whole, pools of poisonous water, rats, disease, the smell. It's insane that millions of soldiers put up with these conditions, and commanders ordered them to do so for years.
There you go. 828.
This war was like territory, but about simply wearing each other down. The Allies had plenty of men to expend in its overseas dominions. The British also started a naval blockade, so Germany could have forced them. The other side really wanted to long you going to war now. They both found ways to break the deadlock from the Western Front.
आवाज आ रहा था ना पीछे तो इसका लेटेस्ट हां सब I see that. ठीक है.
New frontier. When the war first broke out, Australia was quick to take Germany in. The Allies also quickly jumped on Germany's colonies in Africa, particularly in Germany south. Locals were enlisted as soldiers and attackers by both sides, leading to a trench loss of life in the native patches. Some new combatants had as well. The Allies knew friends for Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take the German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had alliance with Germany and Austria before the war, but after some tense relations, the Allies promising to give them some Austria-Hungary stuff, they switched sides. Italy opened up a front in the mountains here. Like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate in Russia. The Central Powers Ukraine was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans. The Ottomans were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians who did want to join went off on their own and fired some shells in Russia. And then came back and said, whoops, looks like we're at war now. The Ottoman entry into the war was of particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the opposite mountains. They weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed the mountains of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British. That failed too. Then the Allies tried to take Dardanelles and Gallipoli in a long and treacherous warfare campaign, but that also failed. The Ottomans blamed their initial losses on the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory, and the resulting Armenian genocide lifted the deaths of 1.5 million. And then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. That plan failed. As the spies got bored, threw their own alcohol, got drunk, which is a bad thing to do in Afghanistan. Both these new frontiers hadn't done much to change the world. The Allies had more men and supplies than them. Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically, don't be jerks. The Germans held a meeting and decided to be jerks. Zeppelin air raids commenced over British cities. They also started attacking the Allied trenches with chlorine gas and the submarines to sink civilian ships. One such civilian ship was the Lewis, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying U.S. opinion against the Germans. Not to be completely unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after, and they had been hiding anti-submarine weapons on their civilian ships, which let the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help. Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War. The Central Powers promised to make all of Bulgaria's wildest states control the help, so they signed up. Together, they knocked out Serbia. The Serbian troops retreated for Albania, which was neutral but had some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians. Many escaped by sea. It's 1916, and the lock is happening. As if they didn't have enough enemies already, Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes. Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time, the OPC battle of the war had no signs of a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts. They were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing it in the battle, so they kept them in port, except for one time. They had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something to draw Germany's attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties from just the first day. It was also here that the British first used one crazy brand new piece of sci-fi technology. The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief national schism, during which the country split into two, the king finally abdicated and the country reunited. With Allied help, they began a new offensive. In the Middle East, Russia was pushing into Ottoman territory from the north. The British had also made a landing in Mesopotamia to protect Persian oil fields, and they had also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad. The army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way, and eventually surrendered. New offensive was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply line. By the time 1917 rolled around, everyone was exhausted. There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question now was, who was going to break first?
Okay.
The Reich turned into a full-scale.
Afterwards, you will see this way now, when the lesson get over now.
Thank you.